overcoming adversity, creating products, creating a new business, redefining your life. There are so many aspects to entrepreneurial spirit, to creating a business, to entrepreneurialism, whatever you want to call it. How do you overcome these? How do you say, you know what, I had this bad business deal. I want to start this new product. No one believes in me. I need to fundraise money. I need to do all this stuff. I know I've encountered it, and I'm sure you have too, but probably not on the level that David Packouz has. You may have seen him in the movie War Dogs. Miles Teller's character was based off of him, real life story. And I think it's fascinating what he has done to the highest levels before, during, and after everything he's done. And I really want to unpack how do you go from this to that? Because I know people that, well, I had this background in college, but I'm an engineer and now I can't be creative, or I was a creative and I can't be an engineer. And it's like, you can reinvent and reframe at any point in time. And that's why I'm excited to have him on the show today. And we're going to dive into this and more right after we thank our sponsor. Every business needs a book, including yours. Visit freebusinessbookpublishingcourse.com today to learn the 7 steps to publish and promote your nonfiction lead and profit-generating business book in 8 weeks. Once again, that's freebusinessbookpublishingcourse.com. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen, David Packouz. David, how are you feeling today?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
You have such a illustrious background. I want to know, how did you go from international arms dealer to creating your singular sound?
So it has been quite a varied career path, I guess you could say. The way I went from being an international arms dealer to creating my current company, Singular Sound, which we make equipment for musicians, innovative tech products for musicians.
The
It
Beat
actually
Buddy,
came
right?
out, yes, correct, the Beat Buddy, which is the
Which you had
world's
the idea
first.
of.
Yes. I had the idea of it while I was under house arrest for the fallout of the arms dealing
Epidemic.
situation. Yes, exactly. So at the end of, so for those who've seen the movie War Dogs, at the end of the movie, I get in a little bit of legal trouble. I got very lucky in the sense that I avoided prison, so that was a huge relief in my life. But I did get sentenced to 7 months of house arrest, which, you know, compared to prison is nothing. But I was stuck at home, and I've always been a guitar player. I've played guitar since I was 15,
Oh, nice.
and so yeah, so I was using guitar to pass the time and playing a lot of guitar. And of course, I missed playing with other musicians, especially drummers, because the drums gives the music the energy that you dance to the beat in the
Absolutely.
music. So of course, no drummer is going to bring his whole drum set over my house. And even if he did, I was living in an apartment. It would have woken up the entire apartment building. So, and I couldn't leave my house to go to the studio. So I bought a drum machine, which, for those who don't know, is an electronic device. It goes on your table, has a lot of buttons on it. Each button makes a different drum sound. You can make beats on it, and then it plays it back in a loop. And so I bought that so I could make some beats and play along to the beats on the drum machine. And of course, every time I wanted the beat to change, because the beat doesn't do the same thing throughout the whole song, you know, it might be softer on the verse, harder on the chorus. I'd have to stop playing my guitar, press a button on the machine and on the drum machine, and to change the beat, and then go back to playing my guitar. And it interrupted the flow of the music. And I thought this
The
was so
creative
annoying.
process.
Exactly. And so I wanted a drum machine that I could operate hands-free, something that I didn't have to press a button on it. So there's these things called guitar pedals that are mainly used as sound effects to change the sound of your guitar. So I realized if I could put a drum machine inside a guitar pedal, it'd be something that I could operate hands-free. So that was the initial idea. It's called the Beat Buddy. Got it right here for the people who are watching the video version of this
Nice.
podcast. And yeah, there we go. And it's got like a pedal that you could press with your foot, and it's got a screen that could shows you what part of the song you're in. And when you tap the pedal, it does a drum fill. Um, and when you hold the pedal down, it'll do a transition. So it goes from like part one to part two.
I see
So you
that.
can go back and forth between verse and chorus, as well as some additional features. I mean, I'm not going to get into every single feature, but you can make your own beats, put it on there, make your own drum sets. You could change the drum set, so you could play like a heavy metal beat on like hand drums, or jazz
And then switch it
on
over
an
to the drum.
electronic drum set. So
So
exactly.
when I was in
So
band
you can
choir and
be
drama,
really creative with that.
I was in band choir and drama, and jazz
Mm-hmm.
was definitely different than, marching season. We always
Mm-hmm.
love the drum line
Mm-hmm.
coming out, setting the tone for the show and everything. But there's so many
Mm-hmm.
different types of music, and I got back into it recently. I play
Oh,
sax
awesome.
piano. I got this, and I was like, I don't want just
Very
to
cool.
be able to play. I want to be able to hit the drum pads too, because it's like,
Mm-hmm.
that sets the tone for everything. But
Sure.
you can be standing there and just tap it
Mm-hmm.
with your foot, you're saying, and it switches it over.
Exactly. Exactly. So the idea is that you're playing your guitar, you're singing. I'm a singer-songwriter, so I do like little shows, little coffee house shows, and it's just me. And it's as any musician knows, very difficult to get other musicians to play with on a consistent, regular basis, particularly drummers, because they have so much equipment that they have to lug around. And a lot of places, like coffee shops, small places, you might do a single one-man show. They don't even have space for a drum set.
Yeah.
So having the Beat Buddy, which is your little hands-free drum machine, to accompany you and to be able to control it live. And that's the key, because some people just play like a backing track of drums and play along to it. And that works, but then you're locked into the pattern of the backing track that you're playing. So if the crowd is really feeling your song and you want to extend like the solo section, or do another repeat of the chorus or something, you can't do that if you're playing to a backing track. But with the Beat Buddy you can, because you have live control, hands free, so you have that flexibility to improvise on the fly.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you didn't just start this cool company. You have 7 or 8 different products. This is one of them, right?
Yes, correct. Yes. So this was the first product, and we came out with 6 additional products after this one, all music related. Um, and they came out from different needs in the space. The simplest product we had was I was playing a show where I had like 7, because I use a lot of effects, and I'm a singer and I have effects on my guitar and my voice. And so I had like 7 different cables. And so it was taking me forever to wrap up all these cables. And so I created a product called Cably. It's like Cabli, and where it's just a wheel and you just wind up your cables on it. And it's makes putting your cables away a cinch. It takes like 5 seconds instead of 2 minutes,
So you've
if you're
never
going to do
been
it
short
properly.
of creativity, it sounds like, whether it's business A or your new business. You had mentioned
Yeah.
you started playing guitar when you were 15. How did you, what inspired you to start at that time in your life?
I started playing guitar when I was 15. Actually, what inspired me to really play guitar was Nirvana's song um, uh, it smells like Teen Spirit,
Yes.
which got that guitar riff in the beginning, and then the drums come in, and then the guitar gets all
Mm-hmm.
distorted and it gets super intense. And as a 15-year-old boy, that just like it just got me so riled up, and I just thought that was like the coolest sounding thing ever, and I just had to learn how to play that. And so um, I actually had a
What
guitar
about
that
Bulls
was
on Parade?
Bulls on
Bulls
Parade.
on Parade, Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah, they're very good. I never got into Rage. I mean, I like Rage Against the Machine, and a lot of my friends, it's like their favorite band. I personally never got into them because it's more of a rap thing, and I'm more of a singer than a rapper.
Okay.
So
There's that
yeah,
riff
so
though in the song.
yeah, yeah. No, they're super intense. I mean, Rage Against the Machine doesn't get more intense than Rage, for sure. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
amazing.
Wow, yeah, early to mid '90s, good times, like when music was
Yeah.
still music.
I love when people say that.
I'm like, should I behave? I'm like, well, it's
Yeah.
my show, so no.
Yeah. You could say whatever you want.
And as can you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, we're not on anyone's playground here except our own.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing a lot of, obviously we touched on the movie, and that was
Mhm.
so completely different. Let's go
Mhm.
back to that for a second. How did you go? How the heck did you get into that? Like
In-
you were into, so you were 15. You
mhm.
like the music, singer songwriter. You're
Mhm.
playing, and if
Mhm.
I recall, because I pay attention to the details, the movie said you were
Yeah.
the same age, but you weren't. You're 4 years older.
Correct. That's true.
15 to 22.
When I got into the arms dealing business, I was actually 23,
Oh,
and
okay.
Ephraim was 19 when we started
So
working
this was
together. So
a good portion after the music and everything.
yeah, well, when we started, I was in college. I was studying chemistry. And just because, I've always been good at math and science, and I was told that getting a science degree is a rock solid thing for your career prospects. So I was studying chemistry and doing music on the side because that's what I love to do. And I also had a few other side businesses because I've always been a hustler. Ever since I was a kid, always been hustling to do various businesses. And then when we bumped into each other, hadn't seen him in a few years. He had gone off to his uncle when he had been kicked out of high school for smoking weed. And so they sent him off to his uncle in LA to work for his uncle. And his uncle taught him the government contracting business and the gun business. And so that's how he got into it. And then they had a falling out, and he came back to Miami when he was 18, started his own business. And about a little bit less than a year after he had been back in Miami is when we bumped into each other. I hadn't seen him in a few years. And um, he asked me, what I was doing, and I told him about my various side hustle businesses. I was importing towels and bed sheets from Pakistan and selling them to nursing homes and to hospitals, which that makes it into the movie. Of course, they changed it. They changed
When
a
you're
lot of
on the
things in the
phone and
movie.
she's going,
Yeah.
I thought you meant bed pillowcases or something.
Yeah, exact bed sheets, right? Yeah, I thought you meant
Future
pillows. Yeah.
case.
Yeah, exactly. So that part is true. I was selling bed sheets and towels. Um and not in the same way they portray in the movie. I was doing just selling wholesale to distributors and to large hospital chains, but in
Anything
the
on
movie, yeah.
Amazon at that time? FBA?
Not on Amazon, but I was selling SD cards on eBay. So
Okay.
that was a good business. I bought them in bulk in China and was selling them by ones and twosies on eBay. And that was a great business because it was super easy to ship. SD cards are tiny.
Yeah.
Uh,
Lightweight.
so yeah, exactly, but valuable.
Don't need to repack anything.
Exactly. Just send it in a letter. So very easy to ship. So yes, I had that as an additional side business. And so I told him about these businesses, and he was like, oh, that's similar kind of work to what I'm doing. I, look overseas for suppliers. I, find the best price. I try to arrange the best shipping, logistics, work with, figure out what the import and export restrictions are, and, get licensing and all that. And, so it's like we're more or less doing the same work, but I bet I'm making way more money than you. So you should come and work with me. I need a guy who I can trust, who's smart, who's motivated. So why don't you come work with me and we'll make a lot more money together? So I asked him, I'm like, well, how much money have you made? And he goes to me, he's like, well, I'm going to tell you, but only, to inspire you, not because I'm showing off or anything. And he's like, well, he opened up his computer and he showed me, he logged into his bank account and he had $1.8 million in his bank account in cash. And he was 18 years old at the time. So I was like, wow, this guy
It's like a
knows what
hundred
he's
grand a
doing.
year.
Yeah, well, yeah, for his life, yeah.
Yeah.
But he had only started working about a year before this, so I knew he had made that money in the last year or so. And he his parents didn't give him that money. I knew that. I knew his family. Um, so I knew that he had made that money himself. And so I realized, well, he knows this business really well and I could learn a lot, and he's doing a lot better in business than I am. That's for sure. Not that I was doing badly, but nothing to this level. And so I was like, yeah, I'm in. And in my mind, it wasn't something that I was planning on doing as a career. It was something that I figured was an opportunity to make a decent amount of money relatively quickly to compare to my other opportunities. And my dream was always to be able to fund my own music career. I've always, I think, as every young man wants to be a rock star. So that was the dream, that I was going to make a decent amount of money and then use that to kickstart a music career.
What was a decent amount to you at that age?
At that age, I was thinking $5-10 million and I'd be set. 5 million, I'd probably quit and start, put like 1 million into promotion of my music business and invest the rest of it in some safe kind of way. So that was my plan. I figured with $1 million behind you, you could give the music career a real shot. It's a decent amount of promo you could buy for that.
So have you always been good with math, numbers? Was it something you noticed early on, or is it just something that was like a high school thing?
I've always been good at math, relatively. I mean, obviously, I'm terrible at math compared to some people, but compared to the rest of my class, I've always been decent at math and science. Something that's always interested me. I've always been kind of a nerd. Um, when I was a kid, and all during recess time, all the other kids would like play sports, play basketball, and I would always be reading on the playground, on the side of the playground, my sci-fi book. I loved sci-fi as a kid, so I was always reading that, and so I guess it just kind of appealed to me more.
I can totally relate to that. This is
Yeah.
actually my calculator from eighth grade that I learned to program on.
Wow.
And
Amazing.
I
Yeah.
liked reading so much, I actually
Mm.
wrote my own book and started a
Oh
publishing
wow.
company. So,
Amazing.
yeah,
Yeah.
even now I throw trash in the basket and it
Yeah.
might hit 1 out of 10 times. So,
Right. Yeah. So you made the right career choice.
yeah, for me, and when I was in high school, it was I knew I loved. I guess I could just say this, and I
Hmm.
was like, I'm either going to have a real expensive
Hmm.
hobby or a successful company, and I chose the latter. I knew
Right.
I wasn't going to stop though,
Right. Right.
and I'm hearing a lot of similarities here because
Hmm.
you're in two different fields.
Hmm.
Sometimes people go from engineering to aerospace engineering, and
Hmm.
you clearly
Right.
have done a 180 successfully. Congrats on
Well,
that.
thank you. Thank you. I
But
appreciate
I
that.
am hearing a lot of parallels. And when you said 15, I was like, well, this took place here. And then after, and you went right back to, music and everything. And I can see why. Like I said,
Hmm.
band, choir, drama, sax, piano. It's fun.
Right. Yeah.
That's why I got this recently. I'm like, what more could I be doing? And I go, what do I really like? And I'm
Hmm.
just doubling and tripling down on all the stuff that I've
Hmm.
always loved. Music's one
Hmm.
of them, video's another. Um,
Hmm.
talking, that was
Yeah.
always fun in third grade. But
Yeah.
so you're you get into this, and I just want everyone to know I'm hearing the parallels of you were creative hustler. I
Hmm.
sold VHS tapes out of my locker. I would get
Wow.
Blockbuster gift cards for
Hmm.
birthdays, Christmas, all the occasions.
Hmm.
And you want to talk about profit margin, no money up front, buy them and watch them. They're already
Hmm.
used, and then resell them for twice as much as they were.
Amazing. Yeah. Great business. Great
So
business.
I never got into like I'm going to buy stuff from China and this and that, but I was always
Hmm.
finding stuff locally.
Hmm.
How did you find stuff from China at that age and time frame when I mean, we're talking a while ago, and there
Yeah.
wasn't, I don't think AliExpress existed.
No, I don't believe it did, but there were other similar things to it. There's, I think, a website called madeinchina.com or
No
something like
kidding.
that. Yeah. And that was kind of like the before Alibaba um, website. And so it was just really Google. like just Google where, SD cards in bulk, SD card manufacturer, and then you just go down the list of results and go down the rabbit holes of that you go down while doing web searches, and uh, you just open up new tabs. Well, I don't even think they had tabs back then, but but yeah,
Browsers.
yeah, exactly. New windows, and create a spreadsheet of the various suppliers, and what the prices they are offering, and you find your best suppliers that way.
And we're still talking about the SD cards.
Yes, well, I mean, that works for any search of suppliers. So it works for SD cards, it works for bed sheets, it works for arms dealing. It's the
Yeah.
more or less the same process.
And I'm teasing a little bit here because
Yeah.
I'm literally thinking of a dozen people that we talk spreadsheets and metrics
Hmm.
and all this in business.
Hmm.
It doesn't really matter if you're talking food, cars, products,
Hmm.
services, or bullets.
Hmm.
And it's sounds very similar. So you never had a penchant for, I don't want to look up spreadsheets. I don't want to do the details, because some people have a real
Hmm.
apprehension about like just numbers and data and stuff. So
Hmm.
whether it's actual numbers and profit margins and bookkeeping, you just
Hmm.
have no problem searching stuff out, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all a matter of motivation. If you think that there's a real opportunity there, then you'll go through the slog and do the not the stuff that is not so fun to do, and because the opportunity is what drives you. So I never had a problem doing it. Obviously, it's not my most favorite thing in the world to do. I don't think I'm not one of those people who lives off of spreadsheets, who finds joy in spreadsheets. I just find
Oh,
them
okay.
useful. But I find them
Gets the
useful,
job
and
done kind of thing.
exactly. It gets the
You're
job done.
exactly
And
like me then.
yeah, yeah,
Um, yeah, it's there's so many ways I could take this. So here's what I want to do, just so we're on the
yeah.
same page too. I want to keep talking about the story and the
Hmm.
parallels of both and the
Hmm.
timelines, but
Hmm.
I want to jump in with for everyone listening, regardless of what business they get into in spreadsheets and the details,
Hmm.
what would you say you have to have if you want a business to
Hmm.
succeed? Because again, I'm seeing so many parallels with both
Hmm.
your businesses.
Hmm.
What do you really think made you so successful with A and B?
Um, I think it's mainly the ability to look at what is real, not to trick yourself, and not to have wishful thinking. So you have to think, well, okay, I think that there's an opportunity here. How do I distinguish whether it's a real opportunity versus something that I just
Hmm.
kind of hope it's true? So you try to verify as much of your theories and ideas as possible. So for example, when I thought of the Beat Buddy, I thought, man, this is going to be such a great product if I manage to pull this off and make it in a economical, in a way that it could be afforded to by people to buy. But I thought it was a brilliant idea, but I didn't know if anyone else thought so. So I started asking my friends, do you if well, first of all, have you seen anything like this? And they're like, I've never seen anything like that, but that sounds really cool. I would get one for myself. And then I asked them, well, how
Literally.
much would you pay for it? Yeah. And I'd ask them, like, well, how much would you be willing to pay for something like this? And I got a huge range of responses. Some people said, oh, I wouldn't pay more than $99. And some other people said, oh, I think that's definitely worth at least 1,000. So it was just an enormous range. And so I made sure to ask quite a few people to get a lot more data points. And I realized with enough data, you can kind of see clusters. And that's how the world is, because the world isn't defined by a single person's opinion. It's defined by the aggregate of the crowd, by the aggregate of the market. And you only get that information by getting a lot of data points. So I realized after I asked like 20, 30 people about what they'd be willing to pay, that they all kind of clustered in the several $100s range, which I thought was probably doable, but I didn't know for sure. So I had to hire an electrical engineering firm to do an analysis on the idea and tell me what they think they could build it for, what it would cost to manufacture. And then they came back and they said, yeah, we could probably make it so you could sell it at this price point. And then I was willing to pretty much bet my life savings at the time on it, which is what I did to have it built. So it was only after I got as much information outside of my own head that I could, that I felt comfortable that I was basing my decisions on some real world data, some real evidence, rather than just, I think I have a very strong opinion about this thing. So I think that that's critical, because the reality of it is that your business is going to succeed or fail based on the facts on the ground, right? Not
Mm.
Doesn't matter how much of a Steve Jobs is famous for his reality distortion field, and that may work in a marketing sense, but only to a certain degree, right? I mean, he
I was
is,
actually just thinking of
yeah.
when they built the first prototype, and he's like, "We need a fan to be quiet, like silent," and
Mm-hmm.
he's like, "They
Mm-hmm.
take up space and all that." And
Mm-hmm.
I was going to ask you, when you hired this electrical
Mm-hmm.
engineering firm,
Mm-hmm.
did you have any did you have to give them any pushback where they go, "Well, we can do this, 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 and this," and you're like, "But I want that too," or
Uh,
was everything actually pretty doable?
Oh, I mean, there was a huge amount of back and forth in the whole design process. At first, actually, they thought it was going to cost a lot more to build than it ended up costing. I was very lucky, because at first they thought it was going to be so expensive that
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have sold many of them. But then I
Yeah,
got,
wholesale 695. You're not going to be selling
yeah,
them for less.
yeah, exactly. So there's definitely a limit in the market for how much people are willing to spend on a product, and even if it's really good. I mean, if something's really good, if it's very expensive, there will be always be some people who buy it, but not necessarily enough to support it. So it really depends on how many you need to sell and what kind of profits you need to make back the engineering costs. But
Yeah, I think a lot of people, they see these examples of like Starbucks or Rolls Royce or
mhm,
whoever, and they go, "Oh, mine is so unique and all of this," that they treat it like a Veblen good, but don't realize
mhm.
that it's still really 80-90% on the utility of it. And if it's not there,
Right. Right.
you
Exactly.
know, all my stuff is special too, but yeah, that's to me, you know.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's always a mixture of those things, because there's some people who are going to buy it for the brand, for the image, like a luxury good item. I mean, people are just spending money on the brand name. But for something that is, I mean,
Generally they're
especially,
higher quality.
yeah, exactly, but not
I don't know, 15
necessarily.
times more, but
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Not necessarily the amount of times more that the price would indicate. But I knew that for this product, for the Beat Buddy, it was all in the functionality. It would either functioned well or it didn't. So now, because there was nothing else like it on the market, it's still a question of what the price point should be, because yes, there are drum machines, and yes, there are guitar pedals, but there are no guitar pedal drum machine hybrids out there. So what are people willing to pay for it? And there was a huge range, as I mentioned before, and that's why I had to ask so many people in order to come to the right price point. um, but to go back to what we were talking about before, even the experts don't necessarily get things right, because my engineering team gave me an estimate that was quite high, and then when I went to the manufacturer, they were like, "Oh yeah, we could save money here, here, and here, and here. We just need to redesign these aspects, and we could, not we can get the price down." They got the price down to like almost 50%, which was incredible. And usually it goes the other way, I'll say.
yeah.
And that's what I've noticed with the other products that I've developed since then, is that it
Instafloss, you
always,
said?
yeah. So that's one of that's our newest product, is InstaFloss, which is our first product. I actually have it right here. Here,
There you
this
go.
is the world's first water flossing device that will floss all of your teeth for you in 10 seconds. You can check it out at instafloss.com, like Instagram, but flossing.
Wow.
And the way it works is it
All of
uses
them in
12.
10?
Yes. I'm sorry.
You said all of them in 10 seconds?
In 10 seconds, all of your teeth in 10 seconds. And the way it works is it has 12 water jets configured in this H shape manifold, and you just stick the thing, you bite onto it, and it twists, so you could just sweep it across your teeth. So you can go like that.
Wow.
And that's it. And it gets both the top and bottom rows of teeth, both the outside and the inside, because so it shoots water from both directions. So that is way
So you
faster
just
and way
you love
easier.
inventing stuff.
Yes, I do love inventing stuff. Yes, I've
This
actually
looks phenomenal, and I'm actually
yeah.
thinking
Thank
of
you.
someone right now that I'm going to tell about it.
Oh, please do.
Actually, a few of them that dental industry
Amazing.
people. Anyway,
Yeah, so this is my newest baby. Yeah, so I created this with my brother, Ellie, and this is our latest product, our first non-musical product. So that's very exciting because the music industry, though it is a passion industry and a lot of fun, and I get to meet super cool people and a lot of fun to build it, but it is a niche industry. There's only like maybe 1% of the population who would actually be interested in buying a hands-free drum machine. So,
but
but ever,
1% of 7
yeah.
billion is still quite a bit.
Oh, yes. I'm not complaining. We've done very, very well with Singular Sound, and we've sold many, many Beat Buddies, and as well as our other products. But to think of an idea that is applicable to everyone is a much more exciting thing, because then it's 100% of the population instead of one. So everyone has teeth by and large, and everyone should be flossing. So and almost everyone hates flossing. So that is why we got really excited when we came up with the idea for the InstaFloss, because it takes the pain points away from flossing. Quite literally, it's makes it non-painful, so it doesn't hurt your gums like with string, especially if you haven't flossed in a while. And it's also way faster. It's like 10 seconds instead of 2 minutes,
Yeah, when you
which
said 10
most
seconds, I
people,
was like,
yeah,
it sounded cool, and I wanted to ask you.
yeah,
Yeah, saving it for the
yeah,
show, but yeah, I did
yeah.
pull it up here, and it's impressive, very
Thank you.
impressive. So, let me
Yeah,
ask you
thank
from
you.
an inventor standpoint. You
Yes.
get you got arms dealing, you got
Yeah.
music, you have
Yeah.
dental.
Yeah.
What do you feel is the common thread of going? I can tackle all these industries, and I know there's even more. What do you feel your common
Yeah.
thread is?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
this isn't necessarily just numbers and you're playing to your strengths,
Hmm.
but the inventing,
Hmm.
you have the people who see the vision and don't, and that's why I was asking about the electrical,
Hmm.
because it's like,
Right.
there's that quote, it's not possible until it is. And so many
That's so
people
true. Yeah.
are going, well, you can't run the mile in under 4 minutes.
Right.
Who was it? Roger Bannister, and there's
Hmm.
de- scientists and doctors going,
Hmm.
you'll literally tear the muscles, your heart will explode, and all this stuff, until he did. And
Right.
now it's like
Right.
totally out the door. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So
It's
tell me what you feel your core
hmm.
contributes to all of this, because
Hmm.
most people give up. Most people, I mean, there's 58 different
Hmm.
ways that you could say, well, you could have stopped here, 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 gave up, went up
Hmm.
to this, or just
Hmm.
stopped inventing stuff. Why do you
Yeah.
still keep doing it?
Well, I truly love the creative process of it, and I love solving problems. So I have, when I come across something that annoys me, I just start imagining what could fix this. And I think that
Like current albums that people are dropping?
I don't criticize people's art.
Oh,
That's something that is if you make your art, that is your art, and not something that I'm going to fix. Now I may remix the art and make something different, and whether it's better or worse is someone else's opinion, right? That's a matter of taste. But as
I
far
love how
as
tactful you are. You're calling
yeah.
it art, but please continue.
Well, this is your show. You could be non-tactful, uh, but no, I do have I have a respect for anyone who actually makes art, even if I don't like it, because a lot of people don't. make anything.
Yeah.
And so, you know, just the fact that you make anything, even if it's not necessarily good, it, you know, I think is something to be commended. And also most artists, most great artists of all types, you know, they don't start making masterpieces, right? You start making stuff that's kind of
Absolutely.
mediocre and derivative, and then you work on your own particular brand. And so I would never criticize you know, someone's art, at least not publicly, right?
I'm
I may,
teasing to
yeah.
an extent, but the
Yeah.
reality is you're absolutely right. Most people
Yeah.
never do anything. And I think it's why I
Yeah.
like talking about this, because so many
Mhm.
people are like, wow, look at them, look at her, look at him, and all this.
Mhm.
And when you break it down, it's
Mhm.
like, you did the same thing here, you did the same thing here, here, here,
Right.
here. Oh,
Right.
did you fail at any point in this process? Yeah,
Right.
hundreds of times. And
Exactly.
then you know, that overnight success, it just takes that 20 years.
Yeah, exactly. Famous saying. It took 20 years to be an overnight success. Yeah. So yeah, I would say that the common thread would be for me would be an annoyance at problems and I would say it's more of a faith that there can be solutions. And maybe it, I don't like, maybe it comes from you know, my childhood love of sci-fi, which is always trying to imagine what's coming next and what's, you know, would be an amazing thing to build, and different ways of doing things. And I'm sure that has a lot to do with it, but I think it is also a huge element is that I'm an eternal optimist. Like
Mm-hmm.
even when things are going really, really bad, and I've gone through some really bad times in my life, you know, even when I was looking at possibly spending the rest of my life in prison, I was still an optimist. I thought, well, you know, it's gonna work out one way or another,
What were you
and
thinking about at that
yeah,
point? Were
I
you
mean, at
thinking, well,
that,
I still have my
yeah,
health? You know, what did you focus
yeah.
on as that? Okay, here's why it's still good.
Mm. Right. Well, I mean, at the time, I was most stressed out because my daughter had just been born. She was actually about a year old, and I was looking at decades in prison possibly, and
Mm.
I was thinking to myself, man, I'm gonna like miss my daughter growing up, and you know, I mean, I'm gonna miss not only my life but also her life, and that's gonna, you know, that was one of the most painful things that I could think of. Um, but my dad used to love saying my dad was also a huge optimist, and I think that you know, that rubbed off on me. He liked to say that and this is uh such a him thing kind of thing to say, but he said that worry is interest paid on a debt that often never comes due.
Mm.
So it's like, if the bad thing is going to happen, it's going to happen, right? Worrying about it is just adding additional suffering on top. So it's not to say you should stick your head in the sand and ignore bad possibilities and pretend like it's not there, but like beating yourself up over it and stressing yourself constantly is not helping you solve that problem. So now, of course, that's easier said than done. Much easier to say, don't worry about it when, you know, your life's on the line or your business is on the line or something. So it's not like it's easy, but I think the most important thing is to take out the stressful emotion from it.
Yeah.
Like you have to acknowledge that the negative possibilities are there, but acknowledge that being emotionally incapacitated from it is also not helpful in addressing that negative possibility. So being able to separate those things out from yourself is a process, and it's a skill that you need to work on, and it's something that nobody does perfectly. And it's just like any emotional regulation. You have days that you're like, oh crap, I'm feeling depressed, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling, you know, hopeless. You know, you have to acknowledge that and think, well, how can I turn this around?
Yeah, how can you
And
still move through it? Because
exactly.
I feel some people, they get so stressed out. Once they feel calm, they think they solved the problem. I
Right.
love that you said that, address that it's still there, because you still, like,
Mm-hmm.
if you have to fulfill on something, you still owe
Mm-hmm.
that. You committed to it, you promised on it. Okay, good, you're
Exactly.
not upset, but you still have to deliver.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
uh, and then on the flip side, there's people who are just so carefree.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
worry's not their problem, but I think reality is.
Yes. Agreed.
I don't know
Yeah.
how else to say it. And honestly, I think I lean towards it. You made the comment about Steve Jobs, and I'm like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually wrote a poem called "Welcome to My Delusion." I mean, that's pretty apparent whether you know it or not. But it's like, yeah, you can
Hmm.
get so like, okay, da 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 da,
Hmm.
out there on both ends of the spectrum, and finding that center ground, at least temporarily, because maybe it's not where you live, maybe it's not where you play all the time, but
Hmm.
you can't go through life constantly stressed and just worrying all the time.
Yeah. It's the best. I think the best results come from being able to balance all these things. And, life is all about balance. You need to be motivated, but you also can't be overwhelmed with negative emotions and negative possibilities. You need to have optimism, but you can't stick your head in the sand. So it's finding this balance, which is, I think, the biggest challenge for just people in general, not necessarily just in business, but in life in general. Being able to find that healthy balance is something that is, and it's not something that you achieve. It's something that you work on day to day, and I
It's like
think
a
it
habit.
takes a lot of exactly. It is a habit. That's exactly what it is. It's a habit, and it's something that you constantly have to calibrate, and you have to be very self-reflective upon, because if you don't reflect upon your own behavior and your own thought processes, then you're not going to notice when you are going out of balance. And so I think the habit of being self-reflective and trying to balance is the most important skill that you could develop, because everything else will come from that.
What do you do, whether it's daily basis, weekly
Mm-hmm.
basis? Do you have any routines or rituals where you're like, okay, whether you said you're naturally optimistic, same as
Yes.
me.
Mm-hmm.
However, I can also get creative opposite of that. This
Sure.
How do you reframe all of that in the moment, and is there
Mm-hmm.
anything you do on a regular basis to just go, okay, I'm at 92%, not
Mm-hmm.
100? How do you pull
Mm-hmm.
yourself out of it?
I think that the first thing is to acknowledge that nobody is at 100% all the time, or even for most of the time, and so it's okay not to be at 100% all the
Yeah,
time.
that's fair.
It's
I hear you.
not something, it's something we can strive for, but not something that you necessarily achieve. I think we all have peaks of greatness, where you're really kicking ass in this one thing or another for this period of time, but then you usually don't stay there, right? But I think the important thing is that you try to think, well, what were the factors that made it awesome, that made me awesome in this particular situation, and how do I repeat that, how do I develop that, how do I strengthen that? And again, that goes to the self-reflection. And I'm always trying to learn. I think having a habit of lifelong learning and being humble in your assessment of yourself is one of the most important things, because people think that they're very smart and they're very knowledgeable and very experienced, and that when they think that they're very smart, usually that outlook tends to close them off from new information, because they will be like, oh well,
Mm-hmm.
I'm so smart, I don't need to learn anything else, or so like, but I think having the humility to know that, even if you're the smartest guy in the world, there's a billion things you don't know. Like Einstein didn't know anything about playing basketball at a high level, or 10,000 languages and cultures, and
Yeah.
or even other areas of science he had no idea about. So he made huge mistakes when it came to quantum physics. He let his own ego get in the way of, historically, right? So even the greatest and smartest people make
They're
mistakes,
still
and
human.
exactly, we're all human and we're all limited, and there's only a certain amount of information that you can process and retain. And I think that you have to acknowledge that. One thing that really hit me, was years ago. I remember reading that something like every minute, I forgot the exact numbers here, but something like every minute there's like 100,000 hours of YouTube videos uploaded or something like that, you know and it's physically impossible to watch them all, right? To listen to every podcast, to read every book, to read every scientific paper that comes out. It's physically impossible. You will never do it. Even if you spend your entire life dedicated to studying this one narrow thing, that one narrow thing usually is more than you could handle. So I think just acknowledging how little you know, it keeps your mind open, and it also allows you to be easier on yourself, because if you think you're such a genius and you're so talented, then why didn't you do this, that, and the other and succeed with
Yeah.
in all these other ways? Well, you have to just cut yourself some slack and realize, hey, you're human, you've got limitations, and that's okay. And that's okay. You do the
And
best
it
with
might
what you
not
got.
be intellectual, it might be
Yeah,
emotional,
exactly.
because there's a difference from emotional intelligence to intellectual intelligence. And
For sure.
I think a lot of people are still starting to believe that. I don't want to say buying into, but I feel like there's a lot of people who just are pushing the book smart side of stuff and just
Mm-hmm.
totally devoid of personal
Mm-hmm.
relationship, just what I
Mm-hmm.
call common sense. And it's
Right.
like, I'll behave. There's a lot of people, all of us are
Yeah.
striving to improve every day.
Sure. Sure. As we should. As we should.
So
Yeah.
let's go back to when you were younger, because I think you're fascinating and very down to earth, and I could even tell it with the info prior to this.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Thank you.
have you? You're welcome. And have you always been that way, or to a degree, or with everything that happened with AEY? Do you feel like that just strengthened? Okay, I really really am thankful for this even more now, because you do
Yeah.
not strike me one bit as, well, you were like Ephraim at any point. I mean, I
Right.
don't know how else to say
Uh,
it, but
yeah. Well, thank you for that as well. I make a great effort not to be like him, but I never was. I've always been more, I guess,
even how it was
you
portrayed,
know,
there was
yeah,
points where you're like, hey, we need to talk. We probably shouldn't be doing this.
yeah, yeah. I mean, he's a very special person, to put it nicely, and he's definitely got he's not a usual person, and that gives him great strengths, and as well as great weaknesses. And I think his strengths and weaknesses are intertwined. So uh, he had, I would say, if I had to put, encapsulate his personality, not that I am any psychiatric or psychologist, professional or anything like that. I'm not a mental health professional, but
You
his
haven't played one
behavior,
on TV?
I have I have not yet, right? But uh, if I would say that he never really had empathy for anybody.
So
That's,
that emotional intelligence side.
yes, exactly. He was just, I mean, he had zero empathy for anyone, even his own family members. And it really seemed like it was like like, I don't know if you're born like this or you develop into it. I'm not going to have an opinion on that, but it was definitely to
Nature
the
versus
point.
nurtured
Yeah,
environment.
exactly. But it was definitely an extreme form of lack of empathy towards anyone. So, when, like, for example, like I've seen him do some sneaky business moves and destroy somebody's business just to increase his profit margin by 2% on this one deal. And he knew, like, the person he did that to, like, he'd done business with him for a long time. He knew the guy personally. He knew the guy's family. He knew the damage that it was going to do to him and to his family. And it was just really, really ugly and sad.
I
And I
agree.
told him, yeah, it was extremely. And I told him, like, how, like, why would you do that? And he's like, this is just business. It's not personal. I'm like, but it's just 2%. Why are you going to destroy this guy for next? You're not going to feel that 2%. That's not going to help you. It's not going to make any difference in your life. And he's like, every bit counts, right? And he just didn't care.
Except emotional
So
intelligence.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say I learned a lot from him, but I also learned a lot of what not to do. So I learned both the positive and negative aspects. I mean, to say one positive thing about him is that he was a workaholic to an extreme, I would say, then beyond where it was positive. But he was. I'd never seen anybody work harder than he did. I mean, he was just absolutely
Yeah, because
obsessed
business, you
working.
can't be
Yeah,
lazy.
yeah, exactly. And that's
Now you
a
can work
big
smart versus hard,
yes,
or build a
exactly.
team, or
Yeah,
do put systems and leverage in place, but you
yeah.
still need to. I would have to
Hmm.
say it's more even an intellectual game. You have to
Hmm.
really be on the top of it in any
Hmm.
business, any endeavor. To just same thing with sports or music or any of it. It's like the
Hmm.
people that make it aren't the ones kicking it with a stick.
Yeah, exactly. And people, I think, underestimate how much work most businesses take to build, or how much work most things take to do. And a lot of people tend to give up when they face the first real
Obstacle.
resistance and the first real obstacles. So I think that's, you know, for example, with the Beat Buddy, I can't tell you how many times this happened that I've bumped into people like musicians who told me, "Hey, you made the Beat Buddy. I got to tell you, I thought of that idea like 10, 15 years ago. You know,
Yeah,
I
I have
thought
the
of
same for you.
that exact idea. I thought of it 10 years before you did. But you know what? You actually did it. So congratulations." I've heard that at least 10, 15 times from different people. And some people even in the industry and in the music products industry, and they just never actually went ahead and did it. And I read somewhere that on average, any new idea, just because there's 7, 8 billion people in the world now, on average, any new idea gets thought of about 2 to 300 times, into, you know, completely individually, because of the factors that cause that idea to come into existence, gets repeated at least 2, 300 times around the world. Um, and yet there's always someone who does it first, right?
Or does it
Because
better.
or it does it better. That's true, and that's another
Improving on
way.
something that existed. I have a list too.
Exactly.
I love creating
Yeah.
stuff, and there's
Hmm.
ever since probably grade school, there's stuff I've written down on line paper, and there's other stuff
Hmm.
in digital documents when I was
Hmm.
got a HP compact in
Hmm.
friggin' sixth or seventh grade or something.
Nice.
Um, that I'll say I bought with my own lawn money because I started my first business at 12. But it's like I've always had
Nice.
ideas, and one of them was shrinking the
Hmm.
PlayStation down.
Nice.
And then 3 years later, the PSP comes out. I'm like, well, I'm sure it would have taken a lot of capital, but at the same time, you've got to be
Yeah.
kidding me because I love that,
Yeah.
and that's what I think is so cool about what you're doing now. And truthfully, since what, 2011, when you
Hmm.
started Singular Sound?
So I had the idea in 2011. It took me 3 years to actually get it on the market. So 2014 is when we actually got it into customers' hands. Yeah.
So, you've been, it's well over a decade at this point, and
Yeah.
you can have these creative ideas at any point in time. That's what's so fun about it.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, for
Exactly.
someone, let me ask you this: for someone who wants to execute on it,
Hmm.
okay, they have a creative idea.
Hmm.
Because I get it all the time with books. Oh, I've
Hmm.
always wanted to write a book. And I heard
Hmm.
this 11 years ago when I did my first one. Oh, I've always wanted to do it.
Hmm.
Well, I did. It's,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? How can
Yeah.
we get people off the fence and going, okay, you've done it
Hmm.
here, I've done it here. What would you
Hmm.
say if you have this idea and you want to execute on it? And I
Hmm.
know, go for it, give it your best, all of this.
Right,
It's
right.
great. But what would you
Yeah.
really say? What's your take on it? What would you tell them?
I think that there is a huge power in making lists and making
Okay.
checklists. And because it organizes you and it gives you a plan, like a plan of action. And of course, it depends. There's a huge difference between writing a book and developing an electronic product or something. So the list will be different. But for example, I mean, I haven't written a book, so I'm sure you would know this much better than I. But like,
I
there's
haven't written one yet.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. That's right. um, there was a book written about the War Dog
Mm-hmm.
story. That's the movie was based on. If people want to know the non-Hollywood version, it's also called War Dogs. It's on Amazon. But yeah, but I didn't write it. It was
Let me
written by
just
a
ask you real quick
yeah,
about that.
yeah,
So,
sure.
how did you sign off permission and stuff like that? Because I noticed
Yeah,
it wasn't yours or Ephraim's to begin with.
right,
Did they just
right.
approach you, say, "We'll give you X amount if we can use the material"?
So the way it works in the United States is that anyone could make a movie about you and not give you a penny, right?
Wow,
Yeah, because
really?
it's yeah. Well, as long as with the caveat that if you have your name has to be in the public record, right? So if your name
Mm.
appears in a newspaper article somewhere, right, somewhere that's considered officially the public record, they can use your name, right? Because it's in the public record and write any story they want about you and not give you a penny, and they could make up everything that they want because it's considered free speech. The UK is different. They have much stronger libel laws, but that's how it works in the United States. So the New York Times, well, we first got into the public record, so to speak, when the New York Times published a front page article about us. It was not a flattering article. And that became like a huge scandal, huge political scandal. And that got the interest of Rolling Stone, who thought it was a super cool story. And so they assigned one of their writers, Guy Lawson, who ended up writing the book. They assigned him to write our story. And so Guy contacted me and Ephraim and asked to interview us. And after he gave our lawyers assurances that he wouldn't publish anything until all our legal issues were over, they signed off on it and allowed us to be interviewed with him. And so he interviewed us for a while, and it actually took 3 years for the whole legal process to complete.
Wow.
So he had to wait 3 years to publish his article, which is the whole story. Kind of what the New York Times article came out in the beginning of 2008, and the Rolling Stone article came out in 2011, 3 years later, because he had to wait for the legal things to pass. And once the Rolling Stone article came out, that got the attention of Todd Phillips, who was director of the Hangover movies, and
Yep.
after War Dogs, he made Joker. That's what he's known for
Mm-hmm.
now. So he wanted to go from comedy to drama. He wanted to go from the Hangover movies and eventually do something like Joker, which is dark drama. And I think he saw War Dogs as kind of his transition movie. War Dogs is like they call it a dramedy.
Yeah. It's,
So
it's hilarious
yeah,
parts.
yeah. There's funny parts, but there's also plenty of drama in it as well. So
But
he
when it's on
yeah
true, like it's be great movie no matter what. But when it's
yeah
like inspired by true events, it's like, oh wow, this isn't like.
yeah
Should I laugh? Because that's kind of crazy.
exactly. So yeah, so he didn't technically have to get our permission to make this movie, but he wanted my
I
cooperation,
was just
and
gonna
he
say
wanted
you
to
would
say
probably want to make sure it's the best it can be.
exactly. And when they're spending like
Uh,
tens and tens of millions of dollars on making a movie, buying someone's, they call it the life rights. That's what they call it. They buy your life rights, the rights to make a story about this particular aspect of your life. And of course, you have no control over the story. They did not give me any sort of
really?
yeah, they didn't give me any power to change the story whatsoever. They did give me like previews of the script and asked my opinion and asked for corrections to make things more accurate and things like that. So I did read different versions of the script before it was filmed, before it was made into a movie, but
Did you
it
ever
wasn't.
consider countering with like we can co-produce it or anything?
It was so I would have done that if there was more than one offer on the table. If there was like every major director in Hollywood wanted to make this movie, then I would have played them off against each other and gotten them into a bidding war, get to increase the buy price as well as give me more power to for more veto power over the script, so to speak. But unfortunately for me, There was only Todd Phillips. He was the only one who was taking a bite at
But
it.
not
So
even unfortunate. And I can
yeah,
appreciate that. But if my
yeah,
timeline's correct here, you
yeah,
started this in 2011. This would have been 14 and 15.
yeah,
You were probably kind of just done and over with it and really wanted to
yeah.
focus on this, weren't you?
Yeah. No, I was, don't get me wrong. I am thrilled that Todd Phillips made the movie. I was actually very happy with how the movie came out. I thought he did a great job.
Yeah.
I thought everyone on the movie did a really good job of the movie. It came out way better than I thought it was going to. So I'm really, really happy. I thought it was going to be like another Hangover movie where it was just like silly and ridiculous. And I mean, I love the Hangover movies, but I didn't want to be a character in the Hangover movies. So I thought that's what it was going to be, but I thought he did a really good
So it
job
sounds like at least
balancing the.
80% was accurate.
I would give it 70%
Okay.
accurate. Yeah, yeah. It was mostly accurate, but good chunks of it weren't. Um, as I said before, if you want the real story, I would read the book by Guy Lawson,
Okay.
which is also titled War Dogs, available on Amazon. Um, and anywhere else books are sold. But and that's a very accurate version of the story. He did a lot of he actually found things out on the government side that I had no idea about. He did a bunch of investigative reporting, and he interviewed some of the government officials who were
Wow.
involved in this whole thing, and so he got like some behind the scenes look at the government side of things, which was very interesting for me because I didn't know that at the time.
Yeah, and
So
when you're doing the
yeah,
business, it might not be under your what you're focused on. And people say,
exactly.
"Oh, I know you better
Yeah,
than you know yourself," and it's like
right.
it's true because, like
Yeah,
right now, this is the only thing I'm
mhm,
focused on, and there's
right.
other aspects of my business going on. I
Mhm.
don't know what's going
Yeah,
on. You sign off here, like
yeah. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it was really cool to read his book because he's a professional investigative journalist, and he did a lot of investigating for the story and got he went through the court records and all the he did like Freedom of Information Act requests, FOIA requests to get all these documents that the government was holding back, and so he got a lot of interesting stuff and put it all into this book. And so if people want to know the real story, I would point them at the book. The movie is, I would say, mostly true, but it's a Hollywood movie.
which always
By
has
yeah,
at least 10 or 30%
yeah, yeah.
enhancements on it.
At least, if you're lucky, it's only 30%. Yeah, yeah, for
So it
sure.
sounds like you're very happy with Singular Sound now. You're saying, if you're serious about
Mhm.
starting a business and doing it the right way, do the lists. Is there even a
Yeah,
second thing you'd
yeah.
say, here's a key to success?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many keys to success. I would say, first of all, don't think that there is one key to success, right? People say, oh, if you only have this one weird trick,
Like
you'll
the
be a
Keymaster
success.
from the
Ex-
Matrix.
exactly. I think it's more of a mindset than anything.
Okay.
You want to if you have to be committed to what you're doing and you have to believe in it, right? I think that's the most important thing is belief, right? Because um if you think that what you're doing is going to be successful, then you are going to have a lot more motivation to go through the rough patches, to go through the challenges, and to face the challenges that are inevitably going to come up. There's nothing ever goes smoothly, and most things don't go smoothly. So you have to really believe that it's going to be successful. I mean, with the Beat Buddy, I was working on it for about a year. I hired some engineers and they did a terrible job. They pretty much just took my money and almost did nothing. And then
So
I
you would
realized,
invest before you were even selling it
oh, I mean, yeah, you have to. I mean,
without even knowing if
I'm
it was going to take off or not.
correct. So I mean, there's no other way to do it. You have to build the thing before you could sell it. So, um,
Which I
but
just want everyone to
yeah,
hear
yeah, yeah.
when you're complaining you gave it a shot for 30 seconds and it didn't make you $1 million a month overnight.
Right, right. I mean, there's always some level of investment in any business, whether it's money or time and effort that you put in. And oftentimes, most people don't have the money required, and so they need to find an investor to put the money that they don't have in it. So, of course, finding an investor is quite a lot of effort in of itself. So, you're just trading one investment for another. You're investing your time into trying to find investment of money. Um, so yeah, so I mean, with the Beat Buddy, I had hired an engineer. You know, I didn't. I'm not an engineer. I mean, I did study 2 years of engineering, but not enough to actually do anything useful in this project. But so I was looking for an engineer, and I hired someone. Made the mistake of hiring the cheapest one I could find. Right,
Mm,
that's just classic mistake. And it turns out that there was a reason he was the cheapest, and he didn't really do much of anything. And after like 9 months, I had to fire him because I realized the project wasn't going as we were expecting it to. He wasn't meeting the goals, the milestones. And then I was so like kind of like depressed about having failed at this. And I was like, how am I ever going to find someone? And I didn't even work on it for like another year. I just kind of went and did other things. And then I, started talking with
kind
some
of
other
scratched your back and
musicians.
just kind of like, I got to do
Yeah,
this.
because like I was like talking to some of my musician friends, and I'm like, oh, I thought of this cool idea for like a pedal, and they were like, whoa, that's super cool. I would totally buy that. You just blew my mind. That's an amazing idea. And I was like, yeah, it is an amazing idea. Why the fuck did I stop working on it?
Let me find those
So
CAD files and engineering
exactly.
blueprints, pull those back up.
Exactly. I got to find someone who could actually finish this thing. And I was like, you know what? Why did I stop this? This really is a good idea. I do believe in it. That's
Yeah.
that's that's the key. And it was just that interaction with those musicians who brought my belief back in the project. And that's why I say that belief is one of the most important things that you could have in a business. Now, that being said, it could work in against you as well, because you have to have a belief that is based on reality and not just
Mm-hmm.
on your internal, ego, so to speak. Because if you believe the wrong thing, then you're going to be
Yeah,
running in the
gravity is
wrong
always a prime
directions.
example. I don't
Yeah.
believe in this, or this. It's like, well, you can not
Yeah.
believe in gravity, but I wouldn't suggest
Exactly.
jump off a building.
Exactly.
Still,
So,
it's truth to
yeah, you'll
someone.
still die. Yeah, exactly. There is a reality out there that supersedes your beliefs, and it's obviously critical to make sure that your beliefs align with the reality. And that's why I would go back to what I said before about getting a lot of data points, right? So if only one musician had told me that the Beat Buddy was a great idea, then I would have been like, okay, that's probably a good idea, but like I don't know for sure, right? But if 20 musicians all tell me it's a great
Now
idea,
you're onto something.
yeah, now I have real reason to truly believe that this is a real thing and it will
Have
be,
you ever seen
a
the
real
show
success.
Numbers?
I've heard of it, but I have not seen
Oh,
the
you
show.
would really
Yeah,
like it. There's one
yeah.
episode where I think they're triangulating a shooter or something,
Hmm.
and they're like, oh, let's get rid. Most people think let's get rid of as much as we can to just focus. But
Hmm.
like you're saying, the more data you have, you'll see the correlations of it,
Right.
where the clusters form. And
Exactly.
it's like, no, and I think they did something in the show. They're like, oh, it was the lottery one. They were trying to pinpoint something in the lottery. He's like, can I
Hmm.
have all the lottery ticket numbers from across the US or the state of
Hmm.
California? It was some obnoxious number instead of the 11 local gas stations.
Hmm.
And it was just like, and he found it nearly instantly once he 100 times or 1,000 times the data set.
Hmm.
And it's like,
Right.
that's the way to do it in certain instances. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so let me ask you,
There's
where do you see this going 5, 10 years from now? Because you're 10 years into this, it's going well
hmm.
now.
Hmm.
Where do you see it in the future?
So Singular Sound, I've got quite a few other products that I am working on, some really, really cool stuff that I'm excited about that I can't talk about publicly right now. But
All right, you want to get off
yeah,
the air?
yeah, no, that's fine. I could tell you. Um, But yeah, working on some really cool stuff for Singular Sound. But I have to say, from a business perspective, I mean, that's, Singular Sound is my passion project. I'm a musician. I pretty much build the toys that I want to play with, so it's really awesome. It's like I build my own toys. But from a business perspective, I would have to say that I'm much more excited about InstaFloss, just because
Okay.
it's a mass market product, something that anyone can use, and that is a huge improvement in almost anyone's life. Because I started working on this with my brother about 5 years ago, so we're 5 years into the InstaFloss project,
Okay.
and we are literally about to. My brother just moved to Mexico because that's where we're doing our final assembly, and we are about to deliver our first production units, hopefully within the next month or two,
Nice.
if everything goes
Congrats.
well. Thank you. Yeah,
That's
it's a
very
huge moment
exciting.
for us. Yeah, it's
I,
huge. Yeah, because we've been working on this for
it's fun
five
to create
years.
stuff,
Yeah.
but it's even more fun again with books
Hmm.
or any product when you're going, okay, it's an idea, I see it on the
Hmm.
screen, and now you can hold it in your hands to have the actual product.
Hmm.
I developed a software to build WordPress websites automatically
Hmm.
also over a decade ago. So I like inventing and creating as much as
Awesome.
you. I
Very
keep it all
cool.
in business,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I think it's a joy that not everyone gets to experience because it's
Yeah.
emails, phone calls. I mean, even the show,
Yeah.
not everyone does that either. And it's like you get to meet
Mm-hmm.
great people and ask questions and have killer
Mm-hmm.
conversations versus like, did you get my carbon copy reply, blank carbon copy? For the love of God, like,
Yeah.
what are you
Very
doing with your
true.
life? So
Yeah.
I
Very true.
appreciate everything you've been sharing. I
Yeah.
have a couple more questions, and then we're
Sure.
going to thank the sponsor. But yellow
Yeah.
or black?
You mean, is the product yellow or black? Is
That's
that what
right.
you're asking? Or
Which one do you want?
I see. You're asking me to choose yellow. Oh, okay, okay. I'll go yellow.
All right. Where's yellow? Make it stop. Here we go. Bending the rules here.
Okay.
So this is the wheel of whatever. I do this for everyone, and
Uh-huh.
I basically created again. I like to create my own toys.
Okay,
Basically,
nice.
it gives me carte blanche to ask any of the VIP guests whatever the hell I want.
Nice.
Um, so at any point in your life, is there anything you would do over again, or is there anything like you wouldn't change a thing? Everything's brought you to this point.
Oh man, that is such a hard question, because, the
It's
butterfly
hard for
effect.
everyone, and I was
Yeah.
like, I want to hear your
Yeah.
answer on this
Right,
because
right. So there are many things that I wish I had done differently. Of course, I don't know what the long-term implications of having done those things differently would be. So if I actually had the power of going back in time and changing something, I probably wouldn't, because I am very happy with where I am now, and I would rather, have my life is so great right now that I have a lot more to lose than I think than I would have to gain by going back in time and changing something.
yeah,
That being said, I can think of many things that I wish I had done differently, and
I think
uh,
everyone
you know,
has that, but it's like,
yeah, yeah.
would you
Would you
really go
actually
back?
do it?
If you
Would
could
you
be
actually
18
do
again
it?
and start life, I'm like, no.
Nah, I wouldn't. I wouldn't.
Because who's to say you're not
Yeah.
going to make similar same mistakes anyhow?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the second you change one thing, you have 10 other choices that you
Yeah,
haven't made before that you could mess up on. So there's so many other ways that things could go wrong, even if you do that one thing you know how to do right. So yeah.
great answer. I got one
Yeah.
bonus one here because
Yeah.
uh, so my director of photography, I put out a
Yeah.
question. What would you ask someone who had a movie made about their life? And he said, how would you get someone to fund his movie? He's a great
Mm,
videographer. I've known him for
mm,
15 plus years.
mm-hmm,
He does all our filming for our author clients, and
mm-hmm,
but I know he's working on his own movies. What
mm.
Steve? This one's for you. You heard me mention him when I was doing everything
Right.
prior. What would
Sure,
you tell
sure.
Steve?
Man, well, first of all, I will say yes, I had a movie made about me, but I am not in the Hollywood business by any means. I kind of, just skimmed the surface. So I interacted with the screenplay writer. I interacted a little bit with the director and some of the actors, and I went to the premiere, which was super cool. But I was not part of the movie making process other than that. I mean, the screenwriter did, go through, interview me quite extensively and send me revisions of the script. Um, from my understanding, there's different funding mechanisms in Hollywood, and I'm by no means an expert. There's the large studios, but they tend to try to go for very generic things because that is what is, they have a formula. Yeah, they exactly. It's safe. And when you're putting a lot of money into something, you want it to be a safe return on your investment. So if you want to have a big budget movie, probably the more generic you can make it, the better. If you can make it something with an established like intellectual property behind it, that's like a natural win. Like, so if there's a popular comic book, you could base a movie off that, and that'll get funding because people know it's got a built-in audience. So if you have anything with a built-in audience, that's a huge plus. So I mean, if you could build the audience beforehand and show investors that you already have this ready to go audience who loves it, then that takes a lot of the guesswork out of it for them, because they know that at least this segment of the population would be interested in seeing a movie about it. So exactly. So you minimize the risk on their end. So if you have, there's like all these fan fiction sites and where people who in fact, The Martian was made like this. The Martian by Andy Weir. He wrote that book. I think he was writing it as just as like a free online thing, because I think he's from NASA, or he spent time in NASA. So he had this technical knowledge, and he decided to write a book using his technical knowledge. And of course, that got all the other technical nerds really into the book. And so they kind of jumped in and corrected him where he was wrong. And so he kind of built this fan base up, and he released it a chapter at a time. So his fan base got built up as he was releasing this book. And by the time he was finished with the book, he had a significant fan base. And so Hollywood looked at that, and they're like, wow, there's all these people who really love this story and
Also
love this book. Movie. It is a good movie, and it was really well done. So that's what I would say. Funding investors and people who fund movies want their risk minimized, and therefore they want to see as big of a built-in audience as they can for the proposed movie. That if I'm going to say one thing. Yeah.
Excellent. Well,
and or you can get just one crazy super rich investor and just convince him. And you could do it that way. So that's another way to do it. I
appreciate the feedback on it. And Steve, hope that helped.
Yeah.
We're going to thank our sponsor and come back.
Oh, is there one thing I can say before we end it? So just one last thing I'd like to say.
I'm actually going to come back. I'm going to thank the sponsor, and I got a couple more.
Oh, okay. So questions. Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead and ask it now.
Oh, okay. I thought you wanted me to wait till afterwards. That's fine. So I just wanted to mention, because I didn't mention before, that we are currently in the process of raising money for InstaFloss. So if anyone wants to join us on the business adventure side of things, they should contact us through our email at instafloss.com. And we're going to be launching an equity crowdfunding campaign.
About that,
yeah.
When you were mentioning those fan sites and everything, it's like you could, maybe you don't have a big venture capital company or a person or a chain company or whatever, but you get enough individuals saying, "I'll give you 20, 50, 100, $1,000."
Yeah, exactly. That's how we've been funding it so far. We did a Kickstarter campaign for InstaFloss that raised, with the Kickstarter as well as Indiegogo, raised about $2 million. So that went very well, and that's how we've been funding the project so far. So we are looking to expand manufacturing, and we have some additional dental hygiene products in development right now. So it's not just InstaFloss, but quite a few.
Tell my dental friends about about
Yeah.
it and you, because
Yeah.
it's exciting. I'll mention
Yeah.
a few
Thank you.
things, but
Thank you.
congrats on it, and I'm glad it's going so well. We're
Thank you.
going to thank the sponsor and come back for the
Sure.
imperfect action round. Every business needs a
Perfect.
book, including yours. Visit freebusinessbookpublishingcourse.com today to learn the 7 steps to publish and promote your nonfiction lead and profit generating business book in 8 weeks. Once again, that's freebusinessbookpublishingcourse.com. Okay. And we are back with the imperfect action round. Are you ready to take imperfect action?
I am.
I got 3 quick questions for you, 60-second or less answers. One is, what is the fastest path to the profits?
Fastest path to the profits is providing a service or product that people actually want at a price that that supports the business.
Excellent. Number 2, the biggest problem you see your prospects making and the fastest way for them to fix it.
The biggest, I'm sorry, what did you say?
The
The
biggest
biggest what?
problem you see your prospects making and the fastest way for them to fix it.
The biggest problem I would say is not listening to your customers, having preconceived notions, and the fastest way to fix it is talk to people and accept what they say and talk to a lot of people.
Excellent. Best way to maximize customer lifetime value.
Uh, Provide something that they want and think of new things that they will continue to want and new ways of improving the service and product that you already make.
I think a lot of people forget that. It's always
Mhm.
about the customer client experience, not anything else.
Yeah, that's really all it is.
What books would you recommend to expert authority world?
My favorite book, I have to say, if I had to pick one, would be it's a famous book, Sapiens by Yuval Harari. And it just is such a great overview of humanity and society and why society is structured the way it is. I think it gives you a tremendous amount of insight into people and into societies at large, and shows where we could be heading. So I think it's something that everybody should read.
It sounds interesting. I have not heard of it before, so
Oh,
thank you
I
for
highly
that.
recommend it. Yes.
Where would you like people to learn more?
You can go to instafloss.com, like Instagram, but flossing, instafloss.com to check out our InstaFloss product. And for the music related products, you can go to singularsound.com,
I love that
singularsound.com.
name, by the way.
Thank you. It was inspired by Ray Kurzweil's book, "The Singularity is Near."
No kidding.
Yeah, I was reading it at the time when I was starting this company, and it blew my mind. As I said, I'm a huge sci-fi nerd, and I realized that the Beat Buddy was a product that a solo musician would use. So your singular self, creating your singular sound, and
Nice.
and it's a technology product, so with reference to the singularity. So that was where I came
I
up
always
with
love
the
hearing
name.
being a
Yeah,
publisher. I love origin stories and just
yeah.
I think it's my natural curiosity to learn it. And it
Hmm.
reminds me of the movie Lucy.
Mm.
It's one of my favorites too, and it's just like, what if? What
Yeah.
if
Mm.
I'll behave? People here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for everything
Likewise.
you've shared, and I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Likewise.
All right, Expert Authority World, we have another great episode here today. I'll see you on the next one.